Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the first quarterly subscriber briefing of 2019 for the Water Research Foundation. My name is Brendley McKenna, and I'm the Subscriber Services Manager, and I'm also the Regional Liaison for our subscribers in Southern California and Hawaii, and I will be moderating this webcast today. First, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping items before I introduce our presenters. So first, you can submit questions to the question box at any time throughout the webcast. It is located to the left of your screen. We will plan on holding a Q&A session, time permitting, at the end of this webcast. For any questions we cannot address today, we will be following up with you via email. You can also download the slides under Event Resources. This is also located on the left side of your screen. Be sure to answer the 3 survey questions that pop up after the webcast. This will help us to hear your feedback and to continue to improve our webcast for the future. Lastly, the slides will be recorded and available after the webcast on our website under Webcasts on Demand. Today, we have a full agenda. First up is our new CEO, Peter Gravatt. Peter joins the Water Research Foundation after 30 years at the EPA, where he was responsible for leading the implementation of public health and environmental protection programs, including significant national leadership experience in the water sector. Peter will be followed by Michael Dirks, who also serves as a regional liaison and works with subscribers in Northern California, the Pacific Northwest, and all of Canada. Michael will be covering a brief introduction to our regional liaison team, benefits to our subscribers, and announcements on our research programming update. Michael will be followed by Frank Blaha, who serves as a regional liaison and works with subscribers from the Rockies to the Central States and to the South. Frank will be highlighting a few research projects, our LIFT program, and our California State Water Grant progress. And closing will be Alice Fulmer, who serves the subscribers on the East Coast from New Jersey down to Florida, and she will be providing updates and announcements from the Foundation. And with that, I will turn it over to Peter. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, Brendley, thank you very much. And I wanted to welcome everybody. Thank everybody who's joined us on the call this afternoon. As Brendley noted, this is my first opportunity to join a webcast with all of you, and so I'm really pleased to be able to be with you this afternoon. And I know that we have among us on the line many subscribers, and you are, of course, the lifeblood of the Water Research Foundation. And we thank you so much for your continued commitment to the Research and Technology Innovation Cooperative that represents the Water Research Foundation. And I know among you subscribers, there are also many volunteers, folks who have stepped up to give even a larger measure of your effort to support our work in terms of research planning processes and working at a project level. And certainly this includes our board members. I know we have some board members on today, and I welcome you, our participants in advisory committees and project-specific advisory committees, those who help out with the Tailored Collaboration Review Committee, and also those of you who participate in the Research Advisory Committee. And all these activities among our volunteers, our really dedicated volunteers, are central to the success of what we do at the Water Research Foundation and help us to make sure that we're bringing the value proposition to all of you as subscribers that you expect and that you need in helping to advance your priorities within the water sector. And with all of your help and your participation, the Foundation is continuing to make very significant advances in the One Water space, including a number of cross-cutting research areas and technology innovation areas, such as integrated water management, energy management, workforce planning, and intelligent water systems, just to name 4 of a much larger set of activities. And in the coming weeks, we have some very important activities that are going to be taking place. I think you're probably familiar with these, but the first is the Research Advisory Committee. And the RAC is going to be meeting in Denver next week. I'll be joining that event. Very excited about that. And then in late April, early May, we'll be moving into a discussion on rate strategies, which is also, of course, a very, very important topic for the foundation going forward. And a couple, I guess, things I wanted to reflect on in terms of where we are at the moment is again, perhaps more importantly than any other, is to thank you all again for contributing your time and all of your talents to help ensure that the Water Research Foundation's research and our technology innovation activities are addressing the greatest needs of our subscribers in the water sector more broadly. And we at the Water Research Foundation have made, as I think you know, we have made very significant strides over the past year to create what is really the water sector's first one water research organization that integrates research and innovation activities across the full suite of water resources. And I think all of you are now very familiar with the merger that we put in place now about a little over, well, right about 15 months ago. A very important, very significant step that launched a new opportunity for leadership in the water sector towards fully integrated research across all of the different water resource types within the water sector. And I think that you're also aware that not only are we very active with a tremendous number of very dedicated subscribers across North America, we have subscribers and partners on 6 continents. So only excluding Antarctica. We have staff who have lived on Antarctica, but there's not currently a research partner or subscriber from Antarctica. But all the other continents are covered. And we're very proud of that and are excited to be able to take advantage of that incredible expertise that you all bring to the table. And as the foundation has moved to fully integrate our business processes and research activities, we're taking all the key steps that are necessary to ensure that we're going to continue to grow the value proposition for all of you and for the entire water sector with a particular critical focus on the needs of our subscribers. And one thing to be aware of as we have worked through this process is that sometimes in mergers there are things that we discover that we need to take action on to make sure that we have the right management processes in place to fully integrate and successfully implement all of our research and technology innovation activities. And that's no different in our case with the Water Research Foundation. And a temporary result of some of these activities is that you'll see that there is a near-term reduction in the funds allocated to research for 2019. And a really important message that I want to make sure that you're hearing loud and clear is that this is not in any way reflective of what we expect in the future. It really reflects the steps that we have taken that are common in mergers or acquisitions when consistent policies and appropriate management controls are applied across the merged organization. So this is, I think, to be expected in the process of working through a merger. And I also want to emphasize, as you're thinking about this in the research budget for 2019, specifically for 2019, I really want you to think about this in the context of the ongoing portfolio of over 300 active research projects worth approximately $50 million that are included in our portfolio today of ongoing work. And as you all those of you who are participating in the RAC or are engaging in other ways on our research and technology innovation activities through LIFT, as you think about the process of identifying what is most important for the foundation to pursue in the future, it will also be important to have in the back of your minds that we're expecting there's a likelihood that there will probably be additional research funds available in 2019 beyond those that we're currently budgeting as we continue to do take those steps that I mentioned to fully integrate the organization. And so what we will be doing, what we'll be asking the RAC to do, will be to think very carefully not only about those projects that are above the funding line based on the current budget, but also to think carefully about those that may fall below the funding line, recognizing that there's a pretty good chance that a number of those will also be funded this year as well. I wanted to wrap up my initial thoughts here, just acknowledging that to me, this is a moment of great excitement and great opportunity for the water sector. And what we're going to be doing at the Water Research Foundation is working very closely with all of you to maximize this value proposition and to expand our One Water research program to ensure that we're addressing the greatest needs of all of you, of our subscribers, and the greatest needs of the water sector more broadly. And you can count on us to continue to deliver scientifically sound research that offers One Water solutions to the most critical challenges that utilities face. And we're so excited to have the opportunity to work with you at this very exciting time. So I recognize that a number of you may have some questions based on some comments I just made. I want to let you know I'm going to stay on the line throughout the call, and we're going to hold some time for questions at the end. But I know that we have important information to hear from Michael Dirks and Frank Blaha and Alice Fulmer. Michael Dirks is next up. And so what I'd suggest we do is turn it over to Michael, and keep in mind that you're able to type in questions you may have, and we'll be able to, keep track of those. And time permitting at the end of the call, we'll be happy to circle back, and I'll be able to address questions you may have for me, or certainly questions you may have for Michael, Frank, Alice, or for Brenly. So thank you very much again for joining us today. I'm so delighted to have the opportunity to work with all of you, and look forward to the rest of the discussion today. So over to Michael.
Thanks so much, Peter. Peter, I really heard your message about the opportunity this year and the next few years. And what I wanted to share about our team in particular as the Regional Liaisons for subscribers to the Foundation is that we help amplify the opportunities available to you through the Foundation. And we're your primary contacts. There's a lot of discussion in every regional jurisdiction and urban center, urban area. And we try to be the lens of how the national and international collaborative research benefits and complements some of the more local discussions. And so we've apportioned ourselves into these jurisdictions and regions, provinces, and states to give the best coverage for our sponsors. And the way we reach out and the tools available to us to do that are through our quarterly updates, making time for in-person meetings as you would like us to do that. And we also host several regional and topical workshops. Alice will give us some examples of those in a little bit. We're also a resource for you in guiding and navigating all of the resources available from the research programming, as well as being a part of the research programming and planning. And we also assist in our annual renewal of our subscriptions. It's a one-time annual renewal, and we can help answer questions related to that. What's important about some of the updates that we'll share today is that they all fall into several tiers of research mechanisms that have been tailored over the years and have been groomed very finely over the last year to be considerate of input from all of our subscribers and all of the leaders on our volunteer board. So as Peter mentioned, we have a lot coming up for research priority programming in April, and there will be many more announcements about opportunities through that program. And then there's also programs that are a little bit more responsive to shorter timelines of research investigation need. So one of the programs that I'll actually focus on the most is actually just sharing an announcement about our Tailored Collaboration Program. And the Tailored Collaboration Program is our matching funding program, and what's important to share about this now is that we will be launching the program in a new form based off of the feedback from subscribers. It will begin in April. We will be accepting our pre-proposals from subscribers in June, and full proposal requests will be announced in August and then due in September. So there's a little bit of nuance to those mechanisms, and the Regional Liaison team is really here to help answer some of the nuances and some of the details about how this program fits your investigation suggestions directly. So the criteria, just at the highest level, are that it's a one-for-one match contributed by a subscriber. The utility subscriber must be the lead sponsor. However, the principal investigators can be selected from outside the utility as an academic, NGO, or consultant. We can also procure one for you and use the procurement process to do that, although it is deadline driven, and that must be considered in your prospects for trying to do the program this year or next year. So it is a competitive process this year, which is new to some of our drinking water subscribers, and there will be a pre-selected researcher, or you can, again, use the request for proposal process. But be mindful, it is deadline driven, so the procurement process would have to be responsive to that as well. With that, I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Frank Blaha. Happy to learn and hear more about Frank's expertise.
Thank you, Mike. And now taking a slightly different tack, wanted to talk a little bit about some of our research, ongoing research. And I originally suggested to my colleagues here that we could just quickly touch on some of our 300 active research projects, and they informed me there really wasn't adequate time. So I suggested, why don't we talk about the 80 projects that we completed last year, approximately 80, or the 80 projects that we started last year. That would also give people a good idea of the things that we do. They once again told me there really wasn't adequate time. And so I'm here with a very brief summary of approximately 5 research programs or projects, although it's maybe 7 if you really put everything together at the end of these few slides. So let me launch into this, and let me start with saying that we are an organization that does any research that would be of interest to a water utility, whether it's a drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, or water reuse utility. That is research that we are likely to be doing or have done or might be doing in the future. And with that, let me introduce Classic. And Classic is really a research program. And by a research program, I mean it's a couple of different projects focused on a general topic area. And in the case of Classic, this is really stormwater. Classic is an acronym, Community-Enabled Life Cycle Analysis of Stormwater Infrastructure Costs, single S, but a nice acronym. And Classic is a EPA-funded, primarily EPA-funded research program from the National Priorities Grant Program. EPA is putting $2 million into this, the Water Research Foundation $500,000, and considerable in-kind support in the course of the different projects that are being done. We've got 7 organizations and other collaborators in this entire program, multiple projects, all oriented around stormwater and to some extent green infrastructure. We also have considerable community engagement across the country, including all EPA regions, and this is both municipal and utility engagement. So what is Classic? Classic is really a program to understand and quantify and provide useful information on the life cycle costs of stormwater BMPs and some green infrastructure. It's doing a triple bottom line analysis, so it's looking at the actual construction and O&M costs of these different BMPs, but also trying to quantify social and environmental benefits associated with the BMPs and looking at the effectiveness of them from the perspective of runoff volume reduction as well as pollutant removal. It's got 3 size levels, and small, medium, and large, not surprisingly, and it is really a high-level planning tool. So this is not a design optimization tool. It's a high-level planning tool for like the municipal or neighborhood level to consider BMPs that you might want to put in place in the future or make changes, etc. Right now, Classic is nearing completion. We are looking for beta testing utilities to engage in beta testing in April and May of 2019, and I have a contact there, Michelle Pugh, with Wichita State University, if you're interested in being a beta testing utility, and I can assure you we're interested in having you as a beta testing utility. We'll refine the tool through the summer based on feedback from the beta testing. Kind of finalize it with some final testing and case studies in the early fall of 2019, and it is scheduled, the final classic tool is scheduled to be delivered in December 2019, so latter part of this year. And this is a 4-year program that should be completed by 2020. So we're very much coming down to the finalization of this tool. And we did have a webcast that was aired on March 7th that covered the classic tool, and many of the researchers were presenters on that webcast. It was 90 minutes long, so a little longer than some of our webcasts, went into a considerable level of detail about different aspects of classic and what it does and doesn't do, and also went through kind of a little case study of application of the tool to Fort Collins, Colorado. Also, although Classic is, I think, a very important tool, especially when it's done, we also have a considerable amount of other information on stormwater management and green infrastructure, including we have supported, along with many other organizations, an international stormwater BMP database that's a considerable source of information. Classic will add to that information, but stormwater and green infrastructure, we've been very active in this area. And so, moving on now to a single project, but this project is indicative of a changing mindset in the wastewater sector, where we're shifting from mastering the basics of biological treatment to focusing on water reclamation, energy production, and nutrient recovery. Today, the sector is also evaluating the feasibility of recovering both carbon-based and advanced chemical commodities from wastewater. So that's some of the background wording of this report on recovery of rare earth elements from wastewater. This is about an 80-page report and just recently published, and it was looking at using wastewater as a source of these rare earth elements. And the rare earth elements are quite valuable. Their market was considerably, the price of these commodities was considerably high about 10 years ago. It's somewhat moderated more recently. But these are elements that get a lot of use in high-tech applications and also, if you will, in some high-tech medical applications. So gadolinium is one of the elements that we're looking at here, and that gets considerable use in the medical industry. And these rare earth elements are down in those double rows below the major part of the periodic table, and in particular the top row of those two, the lanthanides, not so much the actinides. And so this project, as many of our projects, did a literature review looking at what we knew about the rare earth elements, et cetera, but also went into sampling at 28 different water resource recovery facilities or wastewater treatment plants for 16 different elements. Found that these rare earth elements are somewhat elevated in wastewater compared to ambient surface waters in the areas. They tend to concentrate in the biosolids in the treatment process, so the biosolids is what the focus would be on in terms of recovering these, and also ran some economic numbers in terms of recovering these elements. There was interest in this. It looked like there was some real possibility of recovering these elements, and there is. Right now the economics aren't quite there, but it's very close, and so looking at wastewater as a resource is kind of the basic of this project. Moving on to another project that's looking at ways of using something previously considered a waste as a resource, and that is agricultural use of recycled water. And this is a somewhat longer report than the previous one. This is a 535-page report with about 130 pages of narrative text. The rest, the other 400 pages, is a lot of appendices, data, and other relevant information. But this was looking at drivers, incentives, and impediments for increasing the use of recycled water in agriculture. And one of the main questions it was, if you will, aiming to answer was, why in Israel, where there's about 92% use of recycled water for agriculture, why is that so high compared with another place with somewhat similar climate situations, California, where only about 30% of the recycled water is used in the ag sector. So why is that? What can we do to try to bring California along to a higher use of recycled water for agriculture as well as other areas? So this looked at some of those issues. It came up with 64 different individual topics that impacted the impediments and incentives, or were the impediments and incentives, classified those into 6 broad categories. And the 2 main categories that are really impediments to the use of recycled water for agricultural uses are, 1, regulations. There are actually regulations in some states that prohibit the use of recycled water for any agricultural product intended for human consumption. And then the second impediment was the, oh boy, I'm losing this for just a moment. The second impediment, I apologize. I'm going to move on. Next topic is guidance on implementing an effective water loss control plan. Oh, and by the way, the agricultural use of recycled water will be covered in a presentation at the Sustainable Water Management Conference in Tucson next week, and we do have some handouts that are based on one of the appendices, a brief summary of some of the guidance for recycled water use in agriculture, some of the main take-home messages that will be available at the Sustainable Water Management Conference. Moving on to guidance on implementing an effective water loss control plan. This is another project that was recently published. This is guidance on analyzing your water loss control, both real losses as well as apparent losses of water from your water utility. And this is a project that's very much coordinated with, complementary to AWWA Manual M36 water audits and loss control programs. This project is really kind of a next step beyond M36. So if you're a utility that has just done your first validated water audit, this might not be exactly the project for you. This is really more focused on people that have done a couple of different water audits and are ready to implement a more comprehensive water loss control plan. And so this project is another relatively lengthy one at about 313 pages, but a considerable amount of that is supporting information and appendices. And this project, as I said, kind of goes a little bit beyond M36. And a key consideration in this project, that term effective, let's say economic water loss control plan. So it's really looking at how to make economic decisions. So it includes some of the analyses that are in M36, but it goes beyond that, suggesting some other analyses that you can look at, some other benchmarks and metrics that can be used to analyze your water loss program, and also to help structure a long-term water loss program. This project was also the subject of a webcast earlier this month, actually, and one of the supporting pieces of information in the appendices of this project is the Water Audit Database Initiative, or the WADI database, and we have it here on this slide as WADI Plus because it's a, WADI is not being currently supported, let's say, institutionally, but our researchers on this project sort of added some additional validated water audit results, and WADI is a database from a number of utilities that have voluntarily shared their information on water audits, so it has a lot of useful metrics and different analyses that would be useful to people in the water loss control area. And in our WADI Plus, they also did some analysis of those data, calculating some medians and other information on a regional basis, breaking up the country into 5 different regions. Another area that we've been very active in is water workforce areas. And this is an area where there's been a lot of concern for a number of years about many people leaving the water community, but it does seem like in the last few years it's really happening. It had been a concern, but now there's really a lot of people that are leaving, and I know a number of large utilities that identify they have a number of open positions on the order of 10% of their positions are open at any given time, sort of a trending number that keeps at about 10%. As they fill one, they might lose another person. And so there really is stress in terms of the water workforce at this time, and it's a topic of discussion at many of the different water conferences and amongst many of the utilities. We've been active in this area for over 20 years doing projects. We have over a dozen projects specifically focused on different aspects of workforce issues, workforce resiliency, workforce concerns. So things like competency models for different positions, projects that are looking at future workforce needs in the water community, as well as different ways of framing your workforce structure and how people can advance through your utility and achieve higher levels of responsibility and pay, obviously. There were two major activities last year that we participated in with other non-governmental organizations as well as EPA and other governmental organizations. Most recently, in November of 2018, there was an EPA water workforce convening that we participated in, along with many other people, and those discussions are continuing, and we're going to continue to be part of those discussions, trying to identify ways to help address the stresses for the water workforce and to have a good pipeline of future workers coming into this area. Some of our recent projects, recently published or still ongoing. In late 2017, there was a Workforce Skills of the Future project. So that was actually published by WASA, the Water Services Association of Australia. Late 2017, it is available on the WRF website. And that's looking at future workforce skills like relevant for the digital water utility. Then in June of 2018, we had Renewing the Water Workforce. This was a Brookings report that we were one of the co-funders of, looking at trying to improve the pipeline of people coming into the water industry as workers. And this report had some interesting results. Many of them were parallel with the results of some of the other projects in terms of understanding how to have a strong pipeline of people coming into the water community. One of the big areas is that we don't have good exposure for a lot of the younger generations, and sometimes when we are known to them as a possible area of work, they don't consider us a good place to work because of excessive conservatism, and also they're looking for a clearer understanding of how to advance through the community, advance in their job. And this is one of the key findings in the Brookings report, as well as others, that laying out a succession plan, how you can move from one level to another, is a key thing that will help your workforce be happier and, less turnover, et cetera. And in some limited instances where utilities have implemented some of these findings, if you will, they have felt like they reduced their turnover rate and had very positive results. We also have two ongoing projects right now, building workforce skills for intelligent water operations. This should be published later this year, and I think the title speaks for itself. And then strategic workforce planning and employee value proposition development. This is based on a couple of workshops that were held here this year. Some of the same people involved in the 2017 report on workforce skills of the future are involved there. That should be a very useful report. And moving on. Webcasts. Many of our projects, but not all, are summarized in webcasts where we spend typically about 1 hour covering the highlights of a project, the key findings, and some of the key applicable follow-on activities. These are the webcasts that we have hosted this year of 2019, so going back to the beginning of the year, and we archive all of these webcasts. So once they're done, within typically a day or two, it is archived, and you can access that archive, and you can watch from whatever convenient place or time you want and go through the entire webcast. When you're signing up for that, you sign up almost as though you're signing up for a future webcast. And I always pause and stop and think, is this right? Do it, and you'll get access to the webcast, and then you'll be able to stop it, pause it, back it up, look at a frame, look at a table in detail, etc. So the archives of our webcast, good way to get the highlights of some of our projects, and I don't have to read the titles to you here. And we have an ongoing list of archived webcasts on our on our website going back to 2007, as I recall. All right, another research program that we have is the California State Water Board grants. These are two large grants, both focused on water reuse, both direct and indirect potable reuse of water. And in particular, phase 3, well, we've taken proposals and we will be launching some projects. We're evaluating proposals right now from some RFPs that were out in the fall and latter part of 2019. So we will be selecting the winning proposals from those projects and launching those projects in 2019. So that's some of this in phase 2 that's identified here on the slide. And then phase 3 will be launching a batch of new projects under this State Water Board grant, starting to talk about the concepts next month of April, which is only a few days away, with RFPs posted in the late summer, approximately August, proposals due in September or October, and trying to make the selections of the winning proposals from that batch of RFPs in late 2019. We also have another large research program, if you will, or innovation program, and that is LIFT, which is Leaders Innovation Forum for Technology. And this is a Water Environment Federation Water Research Foundation program that accelerates water technologies and innovative technologies and innovative techniques to help utilities do a better job going forward, and also to help utilities adopt some of these more innovative technologies and techniques in our community. And LIFT is a very complex program, a lot of different moving parts in it. We have over 400 people that are participating in this that represent a large number of utilities. I guess I'm not sure of the utility numbers. And a recent product from LIFT is the University Utility Partnership Project, which is a guidance document that was just posted to the WRF website recently. And you'll notice this is a WEF publication. I mentioned they were one of the big supporters of LIFT, and so this is indicative of that. They published this particular report. And not surprisingly, there's a lot to be gained by university utility partnerships. And this project, I think, is very indicative of the sort of collaboration that's an intrinsic part of LIFT, collaboration amongst different groups and different people. This report includes templates for a possible agreement between universities and utilities to help university people get experience at utilities working on utility issues. And not surprisingly, there are benefits to be gained from such a partnership, but there are also, the two organizations have got different focus and different issues that they're trying to address. And so there are places where there could be disconnects between one group and the other. And so these templates of an agreement will help to put in place a program that will be more beneficial to both organizations. And I will point out, since we touched on the pipeline of the water workforce, this is a good way to get people exposed to work at water utilities and to get a stronger pipeline of workers into the water community by having students from universities work at utilities, get exposed to some of the things that we do and the awesome projects that we are always working on. LIFT has its own series of webinars that I have 3 that are upcoming here, and I also must point out that there has actually been today a webcast from LIFT on the CalPrex process, which will produce brushite, and I'll have just a bit more on that in a moment. But LIFT has its own series of webinars. There's also many conference calls and other contacts between the people involved in LIFT. And so I'll just continue on. So brushite, CalPrex, and the recent webcast that was held today might even still be being held right now. Here on the left of this slide is a picture of brushite, which was recovered from the Madison 9 Springs Wastewater Treatment Plant in Madison, Wisconsin. This is a wastewater treatment plant that I'm familiar with. I lived about 1 mile down the road from this wastewater treatment plant when I was getting my master's degree at Madison, Wisconsin. And I did spend some time at that treatment plant, and some of my colleagues spent a lot of their time at that treatment plant. This brushite is essentially a slow-release phosphorus fertilizer that was recovered from the wastewater at Madison 9 Springs. This could have considerable use in the agricultural sector, and This is the result of a pilot study that was done there related to lift and to our research programs just in November of last year, November and December, I believe it was. And again, it's another example of using something that has been viewed as a waste and turning it into a product. And lift, this entire program, and so some aspects of the production of this brushite that's pictured here, is supported by 3+ full-time employees at the Water Research Foundation. And the 3 full-time employees are on this slide on the right: Aaron Fisher, Fidan Karamova, and Amit Pramanik. And their email addresses are there. If you desire to learn more about the LIFT program, contact any one of them, and they'd be happy to respond to you. And with that, I'll turn this over to my colleague, Alice Fulmer, to continue on with this webcast.
Well, thank you, Frank. You are, as always, a wealth of information. And if anybody has questions on those other 80+ projects, I encourage you to contact Frank following the webcast. I'm going to talk with you about some other foundation updates, starting with what I think is some great news about our website integration progress. So at long last, I'm happy to announce that all of our subscribers should finally have full access to both of our websites and all of our collective resources. Now, in order to gain access, there are separate instructions depending on which legacy organization you previously subscribed to. So for those of you that were legacy subscribers to WRF in the Denver office and want to access content on WRF.org, you would basically log in on the waterrf.org site and then click visit WRF.org as a subscriber, and it'll take you to that website, and it'll be obvious where to go from there. On the flip side, if you're a legacy WRF subscriber and want access to the waterrf.org site, you are going to go to waterrf.org. You've all been given an account, and you'll just need to use the forgot password function to get access to that account. It may take about 2 days, so allow yourself some time. So we're considering this just a temporary bridge for you to gain access to the 2 websites. This bridge will remain in place until we launch our new website. So very excited to announce that our new website will be coming this summer, so stay tuned. But it is going to be a one-stop shop for you and the water sector's primary source for water research and resources. Also excited to be able to say that it's going to be mobile and tablet optimized. You're going to be able to personalize the content on it based on your interests and preferences. And my personal favorite is that it's going to have improved search functionality. So stay tuned for that coming soon. Moving on to some upcoming activities. First, I'll talk about some upcoming research publications and webcasts that we have to look forward to over the coming months. A couple of webcasts first. On April 11th, we have the Guidance Manual for Monitoring Biological Filtration of Drinking Water. Also expect that publication very soon. This project is really the culmination of years of biological filtration projects that we've funded under the focus area. I think we have a great story to tell here, so I encourage you to register for that webcast. The other one I want to highlight is Challenges and Practical Applications to Reuse Pricing. This webcast is scheduled for April 25th. The publication did come out in February, I believe, and it provides practical information to assist with the challenges of setting prices, generating revenues, and recovering costs from the provision of reuse water with a focus specifically on non-potable reuse. A few of the other publications we have coming up: pilot scale demonstration of the systems level application of water footprinting for sustainable decision making, opportunities and barriers for renewable and distributed energy resource development at drinking water and wastewater utilities. This project was an example of a project we were already partnering on, pre-integration. And then lastly, project delivery, performance evaluation, and decision support tool for water and wastewater capital projects. Just as with Frank, this is really just a smattering. We do have others coming down the pipe, but just wanted to highlight a few for you to look forward to. and I won't spend more time as planned since I think we're running a little bit behind. Also have some research planning activities coming up for you. Next week, actually, our Research Advisory Committee will be meeting in Denver on April 3rd and 4th to evaluate projects for funding in 2019. Shortly thereafter, on April 8th, we hope to release the full list of approved projects. As Peter mentioned earlier, there may be additional projects announced later this year if funding allows, but we're excited to see the first batch come out at the end of next week. And for all of our projects, we have two types of volunteer activities that I want to make sure you're all aware of. Hopefully you are, but you never know. First, all of our projects have project advisory committee members. You can volunteer at this link here. Again, if you download these slides, these links should be active. You can volunteer to serve as a project advisory committee. As such, you would be able to help steer the project and really provide peer review throughout the project. You can also opt to volunteer as a participating utility. Types of participation vary. It might be as a workshop participant. You might be providing samples. It's really up to you to work with the different researchers and see what is the best fit for you, but we encourage you to participate as you always get more out of a project that way. In addition to the Research Advisory Committee meeting, we're going to be reaching out to all of you through a subscriber survey, a research survey to be sent mid-April. And this is where we want to hear from all subscribers, researchers, partners, etc., to help inform our future research agenda. Really want to help identify what are we missing currently. Is there something that you have not seen us do research on that you think we need to? So this is going to be your opportunity. We really encourage you to take advantage of that, though I do want to highlight that this is just one of many inputs considered during our research planning process. We also gather input from staff utility visits, as Mike mentioned earlier in the webcast, our connections with committees, attendance at conferences, work with other partners and councils, etc. Speaking of conferences, we do have a few upcoming events that I want to highlight as well, where you might be able to connect with Water Research Foundation staff. Frank already mentioned the Sustainable Water Management Conference next week in Tucson. That is not highlighted on this slide, and I'll touch on a few others that also aren't highlighted. But we are later in April going to be at the Florida Water Resources Conference in Tampa. We actually have a workshop that will be putting on there, so I encourage you to check that out if you're attending. Also co-sponsoring with WRF 2 conferences in May on stormwater and green infrastructure, as well as residuals and biosolids in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And hosting 2 regional liaison or regional workshops, both coincidentally on May 29th, one of them on cyanotoxin guidance in the Seattle area, and the other on water loss reduction and control in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. These are great examples of subscriber benefits. If you have not participated in a regional workshop, I encourage you to do so. If there's a topic you think your region would benefit from, please reach out to your regional liaison and request such a workshop. These are free workshops where we fly in researchers and staff to help educate people on a particular topic, and we've gotten some great feedback on them. We will also have a large presence at the AWWA Annual Conference and Exhibition, as always. This year, it will be in Denver, Colorado in June. And we hope you'll be able to join us for our subscriber breakfast Monday morning, as always, at which we will announce the winners of 2 awards, Outstanding Subscriber Award and the Dr. Pankaj Parekh Research Innovation Award. Also want to remind you that nominations for these awards are due by tomorrow, so you have all of 24 hours to get those in if you have not already done so. Also going to be having a large presence at Water Week next week, where we will be a co-sponsor of its anchor event, the National Water Policy Fly-In on April 3rd and 4th in Washington, D.C., with NACWA and WEF And the Water Reuse Association, we are going to be co-hosting this event. It is a widely attended national policy event for water professionals to advocate on behalf of clean water utilities, and we hope to see you there. Lastly, I promise, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers, I want to give one last plug or plea for your support in our U.S. efforts to request fiscal year 2020 appropriations for an increase in funding for the Competitive National Priorities Research Grant Program, as well as to fully fund the Innovative Water Technologies Grant Program authorized by America's Water Infrastructure Act in 2018. Your support would greatly help us here. We've tried to make it as easy for you as possible. You can go to this link here. Hopefully you've already received emails from Peter and your regional liaison. But you can go to this link. We think it should only take you a few minutes to show your support, but those are also due by tomorrow. So we've given you some homework from this webcast. With that, we're going to wrap things up. I would encourage you, if you have any questions, to type them into the chat box or contact your regional liaison, the contact information for whom is shown here. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to Brinley, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Alice. And thank you to everyone for listening in. We have some questions coming in. So first up, it says there was an annual research conference in previous years. It was helpful having this conference more focused on research efforts in the water industry. And the question is the Water Research Foundation planning a research conference in 2020? The answer to that is no, we are not going to be hosting a research conference. However, I'd like to reiterate what Alice touched on with the Regional Liaison workshops. This is a great opportunity to see what's going on in your region and look at utility issues that are far-reaching across several regions. And if you are interested, please do contact your regional liaison, and we can help to work with you and other utilities in the area to get this subscriber benefit to you. The next question is about the research needs survey. This survey, the question is, will it go to all individuals in a subscribing utility? And the answer to that is yes. The hope for this research needs survey is to gather input from across organizations, especially the large ones. Different roles within the organizations will have different research needs, and we're hoping that this comes through in the output of our research needs survey. So be on the lookout for that in mid-April. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact anyone at the foundation, but especially your regional liaison. And I don't see any more questions, so if there are no more questions, just one final reminder, there will be a quick survey at the end of this webinar. And again, if you could please take that, that will help us to improve these subscriber briefings for you into the future to make sure that we're getting you the information you need. And with that, I will turn it back over to Peter. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if you saw my note that I wanted to just jump in here very briefly and thank everybody again, and to thank our excellent presenters from the Water Research Foundation. You get a chance to hear about how much exciting work there is going on, and get to hear from the folks with just tremendous expertise here with the foundation. One of the things I wanted to note as well is with regard to these nominations for recognition, these are really important opportunities, and I hope you'll take advantage of the chance to nominate your peers, people who you have a great deal of respect for, who've made important contributions. And in addition to the near-term deadline for nominations, just to remind you that we'll also have nominations available for the Paul Bush Award, and those nominations are due June 1, and every bit as important. And so just wanted to highlight those chances that you're going to have to recognize those folks who have given so much and made such important contributions to the field. So with that, I will say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Brenley, for moderating. If there's anything you want to say in closing, please do so. But again, so excited to be able to have the opportunity to work with all of you.